Okay, there we go. We are live. Thank you so much for coming. I'm Trina Johnson. I'm the co-founder of Amazing Speaks, which is an international speaker training, professional development, and coaching company. And tonight we have the privilege, yay, of hearing from Lynn DelGaudio. Lynn is going to talk to us about what are you thinking. She is an expert in the brain and some neuroscience kind of stuff, and I can't wait to hear what she has to tell us. So, Lynn, take it away. It's up to you.
All right. Thank you, Trina. Hi, everybody. I'm glad you're on the call today. I'm going to talk for about 15 minutes, as Trina mentioned. So I'm an integrative health and mindset coach. And I help individuals and businesses alike really find the creator, the leader within to really impact change. Now, Trina, this is the first time I'm talking like this, so I don't know where I'm supposed to look. Am I looking right at you?
Yep. Exactly.
Okay, cool. Okay.
Yep.
So I have one question for you guys tonight, and that is, what were you thinking? What were you thinking? Really, what were you thinking Friday morning when you woke up to go to work? Oh, I don't want to get up. Oh, God, I'm so glad this week is over. What am I going to eat? What were you thinking this morning when you woke up? Oh, God, I don't want to go to work. I've got that call. I'm not prepared. I'm not at all prepared. Oh, my God, what am I going to wear? And how many minutes or seconds, for that matter, lapsed between the time that you hit or swiped your alarm and then picked up your phone to start checking social media, Twitter, WhatsApp, text messages, Instagram, Facebook? Oh no, Elizabeth's eating carbs again. She's making weight. Really, Trina? Another European vacation? Oh, give me a break. My life sucks. Wait, what? I can't believe nobody liked my post. That was a funny post. Maybe it wasn't that. I guess I'm not that funny. I'm boring. Yeah, nobody likes me. And what were you thinking when you turned on the TV and you saw another mass shooting and another natural disaster? Government. Not that government's a natural disaster, but, well, stock market plummeting. What were you thinking? Oh, we're so screwed. And when you got in the car and got into traffic to go to work, what were you thinking? Oh, my ex or my husband is such a pain. Or, stop texting and driving, you expletive. And now you get to work and you sit in the same seat and you turn the same computer and you see the same people and you drink the same watered down coffee. You go back to your computer and you sit down and you say, my job stinks. But it's not your job that stinks. It's your thinking. So as a health coach, I get a lot of people say, I just want to be the best version of me that I can be. And, I get it. I think that's what kind of we all want, right? And I think we can all agree that the way we think impacts how we feel. And we can probably all gather around the idea that, yeah, we have some control over what we think. So then how many of us wake up every day and say, I'm going to use this awesome power of deliberate thinking to create a new reality today. What am I going to create? This is going to be awesome. Or how many of us every night before we go to bed set very clear intentions of what we want to accomplish in the next day or 2 days or whenever? Probably not many. So, we live in such a physically focused world. We get sick, we go to the doctor. We get a cavity, we go to the dentist. We get dirty, we take a shower. We go to the gym so we can be strong. We hopefully eat well. We pay so much attention to our physical form, our physical comfort, our physical appearance, our physical performance, our physical well-being. But how often do we think about what we're thinking about? Right? So if we want to create this new version, this best version of ourselves that we can be, how are we supposed to expect a new version when we keep repeating the same thoughts and behaviors and patterns day in and day out every single day. So depending on what neuroscientists you listen to, we have between 70,000 and 80,000 thoughts a day. That's a lot of thoughts. And the issue is that 95% of them are negative. So if we have so many thoughts, and so many negative thoughts in a given day, like, why aren't we aware of these, right? Well, they're in the subconscious. But, I'll guarantee you, if these thoughts, when we think of them, appeared on our clothing, I'm not smart enough. We would be tearing those things off as soon as they appeared. I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. I'm stupid. It will never happen. I can't do it. But yet we have these, we're cloaked in these thoughts every day, each and every one of us. So it's almost like, when you learn to drive a car, and at first you don't really have to you have to think about it. You got to figure out when to put the key in, when to look over your rear or look in the camera now. And there's a whole process that your brain learns, but over time it becomes pretty automatic. And that's kind of how these thoughts are operating, like an operating system or app in the background. We're on autopilot. So our thoughts are running us and not the other way around. So people sometimes say to me, I feel like there's something missing. It's like, I feel like I'm not the person that I came here to be. Like there's this separation, this tug. And I know that a lot of us have felt that, some from an early age. Like there's this tug of who we're becoming in this world and what that essence of our true spirit is. And there's it becomes this gap. So I say, yeah, there is something missing. It's you. Because over time, and our thoughts create our behaviors that create our attitudes that shape our personality. And so over the years, we become this personality that we tell ourselves we are. That may not be the essence of who we truly came here to be. But another thing about our thoughts, so every time we have a thought, there's a chemical, biological, hormonal response in the brain and the body. So when we have a happy thought, a positive thought, say we're holding a puppy, our brain releases like dopamine and oxytocin into the body, and we have this really good feeling in the body, and the body's like, ooh, I feel good. And the body sends a signal back to the brain, and the brain's like, everything's good, awesome. That's it, end of story. But when we have negative thinking, and there's one thing to have like a negative or stressful response to something, right? Like somebody cuts you off in traffic and you get mad and maybe you flip on the bird and you're over it. And that's healthy and that's normal. But 60 to 70% of us live in a chronic elevated state of stress. And not hard to believe, since in recent history, everything is breaking news, high alert, and we just all overstimulated. And when we're in that, so when we have these negative thoughts or stressful thoughts and patterns, very different chemicals are released in the brain. Like we know cortisol, that's the big one. So the brain sends a message into the body, and the body's like, it gets this feeling, this sensation, this tension. It's just, ooh, this doesn't feel good, and sends a signal back to the brain, and the brain's like, oh, anxiety in the body, more chemicals, and there's this even more redundant feedback loop between brain and body, and that can be damaging because that process can actually downregulate genes that trigger disease. So our thoughts quite literally can make us sick. So, but if that's true, then the question becomes, if our thoughts can make us sick, then can our thoughts make us well? Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So this journey kind of began for me in 2014 when I had a 80-pound blunt blow to the head, and I had a traumatic brain and spinal cord injury. And I was just prone, no stimulation for weeks, no phone, no light, no sound, no music, no nothing. It was just me and my thoughts. And my head, I guess, was so sensitive. My body was so ultra sensitive. And when not at first, because I was such mush, but maybe within a week or so, I think, I started to notice whenever I thought of something stressful or negative, I literally felt the pressure in my head, like, and the eye pain and the head pain and the dizziness and the nausea and like as if I was getting reconcussed. And so there was a very simple and quick lesson and decision. So the lesson was, when I think bad thoughts, I feel really bad. I have a very somatic response and I feel awful. When I think good thoughts, I feel pretty good. And so I need to heal my brain. So it was a pretty simple decision. Hey, feeling bad feels bad. I want to feel good. So I'm going to try to keep those thoughts away or replace them or whatever I have to do. And I realized too that I get to pick, I get to select, I get to choose what I think. I get to pick my thoughts. And that was really like an awakening for me. I never thought about that before. I don't have to think, if something stressful came into mind about mounting medical bills, I'm like, put it aside. It's going to work out. Puppy, please, So, so anyway, over time, it was such an empowering process, because I actually and I intuitively developed these tricks and tools, like how to replace my thoughts and how to make it feel good in the body, and how to, use repetition and meditation. And the more I practiced, the better I felt. And the better I felt, the more I wanted to practice. And the more I practiced, the more I paid attention. And pretty soon, there was not one day that went by that I didn't want to practice. It felt that good. And I was in like this constant state of bliss eventually, like just this joy. I would walk down the street, taking my walk, and I'd be like, like for no reason smiling. And people, I'm sure, were like, she's smiling every damn day. What is her problem? But it just felt that good and it took a lot of practice and repetition. Anyway, so there's a guy by the name of Dr. Joe Dispenza, and I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he often says, if you want to, I know you know him, he is, Trina, if you want to create a new reality, you have to create, or a new personal reality, you have to create a new personality. And that's exactly what I had done with myself. And it quite literally, because when you change your thinking, you're changing the circuitry in your brain. And all these negative thoughts and beliefs they're formed by the time, most of them, by the time we're 6 or 7. And they're simply not true, like I'm not worthy, I'm not smart enough. But they're based on a false perception of maybe an event or a situation or circumstance. And then they get repeated over time during our lifetime until our brain circuitry is so hardwired, so sometimes when we go to make a change, if we want to make a change, our body will spaz a little bit, and our brain, and it'll be like, yeah, I can wait till tomorrow. I don't really have to do this. I'm going to stay in this place of fear because it feels right. But no. It's because it feels familiar, and it's important to recognize the difference of what feels right and what feels familiar. So, companies spend like billions of dollars every year in these like 3-day leadership retreats. And I always question, like, how are you going to evolve and change the habits of your team and your environment and your culture and your leadership? Like in a 3-day, it takes more than giving lecture. And they're all well-intentioned. They have a purpose, of course, but there's never any sustainable, lasting change, because I think what they miss in a lot of these trainings is, in order to get that change, you've got to get into the subconscious, and you've got to get, and this is a whole other discussion, but very simply, we're always in a state of like decision-making, high beta brainwave, very high frequency brainwave. And the habits, when we want to change the habits, that they reside in the subconscious. So it's a matter of training people how to get down into the lower frequency, the alpha and the theta brainwaves, and that's where real change takes place. And I'm convinced that my post-injury of a forced meditative state was really what helped me in gaining my awareness and changing a lot of my patterns. But anyway, I have a book coming out in March. I think we've been tweaking the title. I think it's going to be called Altered on Impact, but I'm not sure yet, but I'll keep you guys. It's kind of exactly what happened. But I'll keep you guys in the loop. And you can also catch me on yestoyourhealth.fit. It's all spelled out, yestoyourhealth.fit, which is my primarily coaching website. And I've got a Yes to Your Health Facebook page. But I'm also at LynnDelGaudio.com, which is more for it's LD Consulting, Live Deliberately. So thanks for listening to my spiel, and I will hand it back to Trina. And if you guys have any stories of your own, or if you have any questions, I'd love to hear all of it.
All right. Thank you, Lynn. Yay. I love the title of the book. I think that's fabulous. Yes, that's like perfect. Very good.
Thanks.
All right. So I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
When you were talking about the practices that you did to kind of change your brain, can you give us a couple examples of what you were doing?
Sure. So in the very most simplest form, I like to call it my favorite things, because it's, like I simply remember my favorite. I'm not going to change to be there, obviously. So it's literally, if you're having a negative thought, you just go, what's my favorite thing that makes me feel good in my body? Because when you have an elevated emotion about something, the creativity and centers in your brain are like, whoa, what's going on? And that, that can help the change too. That's the most simple example. When if ever I was having like a very somatic reaction, now if you've got a body reaction to something, it means that your limiting belief, that belief that's holding you back from being the best you can be, it's gained momentum. It's pretty strong. So you've got to, there's a couple things I do. One day, I was so miserable in work, and I'm like, why am I so miserable in work? I'm so happy in every other aspect of my life, which, believe me, every other aspect of my life isn't perfect, but I'm so miserable in my career. So I just did this fill in the blank, and I wrote down work is blank. And I started writing, work is stressful, work is a challenge, work is political, work is this, work is that, all these things. And I'm like, wow, I've been telling myself a really negative story about my job, which is paying me well. I work independently. I have supportive colleagues. My boss is not a micromanager. I get to set my own schedule. What is so bad about it? It's a belief I'd had from years ago when I worked in one of the big accounting firms. And it was unheard of to admit that you had a 40-day work week. You never did that. You worked a minimum of 60 or 80 hours, sometimes over 100. And you wore it on your sleeve like a badge of honor. And it was stressful. And so there are different things like that. Or there's one where, so what? So I was terrified of a deadline. I had all this fear about this deadline. I was like, what about the deadline am I afraid of? I'm not going to meet it. So what? What if you don't meet it? They might not like me. So what? They might fire me. So what? So then I won't have money. So what? So then I won't be able to pay the bills. So what? Then I'll be homeless and I'll be alone and afraid and this primal first chakra, fear of not having my basic needs and then you reality test. Have you ever missed a deadline? No. Have you ever not paid your bills? Maybe, but I figured it out. But no, they're not, most of them are never true. So example, if you say, I can't work out, I don't have time, that's a limiting belief. It's not true. Because I can sit here on my couch and do crunches. It's bull. It's lies, it's BS. But if you say, I can't work out, I broke my femur this morning, different.
Sheree, you want to jump in on that?
Sheree.
Hey, Lynn. So going back to what your so what? What prompted you to even start doing that? What did you read? Yeah, what made you go there to even start doing that in your life to get to this point?
So I asked myself the same thing, and I think I write about it in the book, because I'm like, I intuitively figured this out. And it wasn't until 2 years after the injury where I found out who Dr. Joe Dispenza was. And he was explaining all the neuroscience behind why what I was doing was working. When I stopped the negative thought, when I first recognized it, I didn't realize I was shortening the refractory period. That is the period between from the time the thought occurs until the time you shut it off. And that's the stress response. Essentially, that's the stress response. But I don't know. So it wasn't my forced meditative state that helped me, just because they're very simple techniques. And I don't think that thinking of a positive thought when you're having a negative one is any original. That's not my original thought. I'm sure we all could think that up. So I honestly don't know where this came from. I would just, the more I practiced, the more I like wanted to practice, and the more exercises I just would come up with. And like Abraham Hicks has these rampages of appreciation, she calls it, and she just talks and talks and talks and talks. And it's almost like she's feeling, I talk about this in the book, like language, we pull from language, you and I've talked about this, Sheree, to convey energy, really, right? Because we select words that want to convey a certain energy. It's like when people channel, that's kind of how they do that. But I was listening to her one day and I was like, wouldn't it be fun just to do a rampage of appreciation? I call it alphabet soup, from A to Z. You just like, I thank the universe first for appreciating, bestowing upon me, creating for me, developing, and on and on. I do everything in the alphabet, and then I do it in Spanish, and I get tripped up on.
There you go.
I get tripped up on Z and X, but so I don't know where they came from. It was just kind of fun, and then I would create more and more and more.
Good stuff. And so this came 2 years after.
No. The exercises they were immediate, like, because whenever I had a negative thought or some stress enter my head, I could feel it. So I was getting reconcussed, I felt like, all the time. So I was like, all right, I got to figure out how to stay positive in this state. So I started real simple. And then over time, and it was a challenge. And like, if you read the book, because I was in pain for, tormented, wounded animal, electrocuted, every 20 seconds kind of pain for 18 months. And so there were times where I would fall out of practice because the pain was too great. But 2 years into the practice is when I was introduced via YouTube to Dr. Joe Dispenza. And that's when I was like, oh my God, this guy's explaining the neuroscience behind all these things I've been doing. I didn't know why they worked. I just knew that they did. And then it was like even more powerful because I'm like, this really works, and there's science to prove it. It's not just me saying, here's what happened to me,
Good.
Anyone have any questions? Sandy, what about you? You got anything going on? Oh, I think she dropped off for a moment. El Carice, anything?
Well, funny that this sort of came along. I had been following Dr. Caroline Leaf, who is neuroscience. I don't know all the lingo, but it talked about the negative thoughts and how it impacts you. And she's coming to it from a Christian perspective. And she gave me, in the book that I was reading, the book was like the 21-day brain detox.
Oh, I love it.
It talks a lot about negative thinking and allowing your thoughts to run away with you. Now, I just started this book, but everything that Lynn is saying, I found to be very, lines up with what I read in the book. And I think that actually using that really does help, because I feel like the little bit of time that I've spent in trying to rewire my brain, I feel like there is a difference. I remember the dopamine feeling in the beginning, because we talked about how you feel so great when you first start capturing these thoughts that are all over the place. And she mashed it up with scripture, and that's what made me think, well, that does make sense, where it says, bring all of your thoughts into captivity, anything that exalts itself against the word of God. And so I was like, this is starting to match up. So he created us this way to be able to kind of rethink and recover and heal. The outside is, a lot of attention grabbing and anxiety, and here's the worst things that's going on in the world. And if you're participating in that, it can bring a lot of stress to you. And so when you start learning that your brain isn't supposed to be experiencing that, then you find a way, like meeting someone like yourself or Dr. Caroline Leaf, where you're learning that, all this time. So then we start to try to put it into practice, and we'll see a difference. And I've even seen where once that level of dopamine falls, when you first start experiencing it, it's really good that you're able to kind of meditate and capture all of these thoughts. And then when it starts to subside, you feel like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. It's not working.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like a process over time, just from, just my experience, because it's all still new to me. But to hear you speak of it, it's like, oh, there's something to this, something's happening. So I think that what you're saying is 100% dead on, just from the little bit of time. I think it's actually been like a full week for me.
That's good.
I was reading the book.
That's fantastic.
So. Yeah. Well, and I'll just share something very quickly with you, El Carice, that I learned a technique a while ago that really helped me. Was before you meditate, before anything, actually go back in your head and think about a time when you were really happy. Think about an instance, think about, some event, something where you were really, really happy, and practice putting yourself back into that situation so that you can feel that, and then go into like a meditation and spend some time thinking, because your body will react, and emotion is really what helps, capture all those thoughts, that emotion, that dopamine, those things. But if you can, and I have like 3 or 4 memories that I go back to all the time, that if I feel a little out of sorts, I go back to those memories to kind of psych myself up again, and then go into meditation and, try to figure out why I'm feeling, out of sorts kind of thing. But before I do it, I make sure that I'm in an elevated, happy state.
Okay.
I struggle a little bit with the whole psych yourself up thing, because and I don't know if this is because I think I had a brain injury as well, but I don't know how to get to that psych yourself up thing. When I feel like the last time I was like 100% happy was when I was a kid, and I didn't have to wonder, what am I going to eat, when I was a kid. And
Right.
so when responsibility starts to kick in.
But that's still completely legitimate. That's still in your brain. It can still evoke that emotion. My memories are like late teens, early 20s kind of thing, when I was really excited about some things. I mean, a couple things happened. Absolutely, it's okay to go back to childhood, because you know what? Your childhood traumas are still with you, and your childhood happiness is still with you.
Right.
You just got to find it. You just got to unbury it.
Yeah, and some people can't go back to their childhood because it was too scary. So you gotta, think of the puppy ear smell, or you gotta get general and find something. Yeah.
And sometimes you have to redefine your belief system, because if you redefine your belief system, if your belief system is poison, if it's poison to you, then you're going to collapse eventually along the way. But a lot of things that you said are so on point. I was taking notes how you have to refeed yourself, as every moment is every second is a moment. So we have to take that perspective, and we have to move with that.
Yeah. And our thoughts are nourishment, just like the food that we ingest. So why would we feed ourselves crappy, toxic food? And the thing is, people, like the industries, don't want you to know that you've got this power. We've all got this power. We're all great leaders and creators. And advertisers, they really are in tune with that, and they know how to, push our buttons, but we all have the power. And the Jesuits had a really interesting saying, I don't know if I'm saying it exactly right, but show me the boy by the time he's 6 or 7, and I'll show you the man. And that's how hardwired we are by the time, very early on. If you show me a young man by this age, I know who he's going to be when he's an adult. But it's a shift. It doesn't happen overnight. It's just, it takes work. And I like to call work where our realities kindle, because if you do the work, it doesn't have to have a bad connotation. There's no way you won't have a really positive experience.
Then what do you think leads a person to their truth and their subconscious state? Because that subconscious state is what regurgitates the most back to us in times where we're in affliction or trouble or happy. But the subconscious can trigger us into a bad place or a good place. So how do we lead our best truths to the subconscious?
For me personally, meditation had a lot to do with this, because, you know, meditation, that word really means to become familiar with oneself. Mm-hmm. And it was just calming the mind. And when you calm the mind, the thoughts kind of disperse. And then, you know, when these thoughts come up, I would just, first thing you do is this true? You know? But yeah, because it's all in the subconscious. But they lose their power. You know, when we become more familiar with who our spirit, who our essence really is, and we can calm that mind, then that's where the change can take place. That makes sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And especially on a spiritual level, definitely when you're at peace in your subconscious state, you can quiet the external. And that makes a really big difference. And especially helps, like I'm blind, I'm challenged with my eyes. So when I can't see at all, I have to reinforce my ability to know who I am. My sight has nothing to do with my ability to be who I am or to talk or to perform. But when I'm blind, it's a frightening time. So that mind has to be reinforced, just like Trina says. Sometimes I have to go back to, you've done this before.
Yeah.
You
know, your brain and your ego are always fighting against it. They're always find something to complain about or fix, or, you know, that's survival mode. And so it's trying to navigate all of that too. And you know, most of us are so still in that old Newtonian view of if it doesn't exist, you can't see it, and the possibilities are separate from ourselves. But no, it's all, you know, life. It's all about possibility thinking, and we are creators. That's what we all forget. We are creators, and we're so afraid of the unknown. Our ego's so afraid of the unknown, right? And so that's when, you know, I just. Yeah, I'm a walking example right now of my book, because my dad died in October. My mom's sick she also had a stroke. I'm out of a job. I'm trying to reinvent myself. My dog was just mistreated in the hospital 2.5 weeks. And I'm like, I got to keep trusting in the universe. I have to keep trusting that it's all, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. My mom said to me one day, this was years ago, and I remember saying, oh my God, it was after the downturn, and I was in and out of work, and I said, I hate this feeling of having to worry about money all the time. I've never had to worry about money. She started laughing. She said, what are you talking about? She said, you've always had plenty of reason to worry about money, but you've always chosen not to, because you have faith. And it always worked out when you have faith. And I'm like, and I never after that day did I worry again.
I'm looking for something you stated that was really powerful. I'm going to go find it. Okay.
Sheree, you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I agree with what everyone's saying, because just for me, like, at times when I'm like, I don't know what to do, or you can't do, for me, my thought process is, if I can't do anything about the situation, I just give it to God and just work it out, because I don't know what to do, and I don't even think about it. It just works itself out.
Yeah,
that always works for me.
Absolutely. It took me a long time to learn that, but I
can't do anything about this.
And say it's always going to work out, and it may not be how I want it to work out, but it always works out.
Yeah.
So far, right?
It always worked for me. Especially, you know, you can only do but so much, and it's like, well, I can't do anything about this. So God, can you just handle this, please? Because, and I just leave it alone. I don't even think about it anymore, because I can't. Yeah.
You know, I know what it was. It was thoughts versus truths. Thoughts versus our truths. I have a little saying called 11:59.
Called what?
At 11:59.
Okay.
Because at 12 o'clock, it has to be, the day changes, and you have to have the results on that day. So the 11:59 hour is the hour of indecisiveness. But if your thoughts stay in that indecisive moment, you'll never get to the truth that you're able.
Yeah.
So the truth strikes at 12?
The reality strikes at 12, because the truth comes alive in your spirit that you are more than a conqueror.
I missed some of that. I feel like it went a little like
You went in and out.
Yeah.
Okay, I said that at 11:59 means that the truth strikes at 12. You realize that you are more than a conqueror. You release everything that is negative inside and deal with the realities of your victories so that, if you think negative, you do a negative. If you think positive, you do a positive. But you have to not only think it, you have to believe it to your soul. And then the soul is the place of decision, right? That's where good meets right, right meets wrong, good meets bad, right meets darkness. The word tells us that. So if that is the truth, then if God is our anchor, we're going to have light. We have some revelation. So we need that point. So truth versus thoughts.
And you make a really good point, because you do have to believe it, because if you can say affirmations all day long and you can say positive things all day long, but you're not going to affect change if you don't believe in the change. You have to believe. There's Bruce Lipton tells a story about the caterpillar, and there's like 7 billion cells in the caterpillar, and all the cells have a job, reproductive cells, the food, whatever, the digestive cells, but the caterpillar only has a maximum point of growth, at which point it stops eating. And so it's like an economy, and like the cells start getting pink slips because they don't have a job anymore and they start dying off. But there's a group of imaginal cells, they're called imaginal cells, and they have this vision of the butterfly, and they all organize around this vision of the butterfly that they all 100% believe in, and then that's how like the butterfly gets formed. So it's a really kind of cool metaphor.
Yeah.
So El Kareem, you were going to say something. Pop in here.
I might have set it to the side in my brain.
That's okay. We love your brain.
Well, I guess when it comes back through, I'll bring it up. I know that the practice of, I know what I was going to say. For me, I don't engage in a lot of here's what's going on in the news and here's what's going on, like say social media, things like that, because it kind of puts us in a place in our minds of comparison.
Yes.
And then you begin to feel bad about yourself because one accountant just started their business and it's already flown, and you might just be starting yours as well, and it's kind of creeping along. And so it makes you feel like I'm doing everything wrong. It just makes you beat up on yourself. And what we're seeing is just images, and it may be reality for some, but I'll speak for me. My reality is that I have to prepare, I have to study, I have to market, I have to, and so when I'm looking at others, it in that comparison starts to creep up. It slows you down because you begin to think negatively about yourself, and then you're just sitting because you felt like you couldn't do it because you didn't get to that place that Sally got to in 5 minutes where you've been working on it for 2 years. So for me, I try to stay away from that so that I can keep going, because I've seen that it makes me feel not my best. It makes me kind of get into a place of, just the comparison and doubting your abilities, things like that. So, and when you get to start doubting your abilities or not sure where you are, that thinking, which is negative thinking, I really feel like that can stop you in your tracks. So it doesn't matter how great someone else might think you are. If in your mind is a war zone, it's not going to, until you start to grab a hold of that stuff and like literally just tell yourself, I'm going to be positive, or whatever the positive thought is that keeps you going. Like how you were talking about, Lynn, when you said repeating, I think you said repeating positive words or something like that. And
affirmations, I think.
I don't know if it was affirmations at the time, or maybe it was repeating affirmations, not sure. But I think that you have to kind of always have that in your arsenal so that if you get that place of like traffic in your brain, you can kind of redirect it to a place of more positive thoughts and your plans and so forth. Yeah.
It's all compare and despair is what we call that, comparing. And then that's why, oh, no, I just lost my train of thought.
Uh-oh.
Oh, I've talked enough.
But it is really good to have a way to remind yourself how worthy you are, you know, and if it's affirmations or if it's a blessing jar or if it's just, you know, testimonials or whatever, it is really good to have a way to be able to trigger, though, you know, to push that comparison aside, because comparison doesn't help anybody. It really doesn't. And the sooner you learn that, the better, though it takes a while. But everyone was put on this planet for their own thing, right? There are no two El Carice. There's only one El Carice.
Right.
And your path is completely unique. It's completely unique. There's not another person who's going to go through the exact same path as you. So when you compare, you don't know what you're really comparing to. Right. Because God did not make you the same as that person and did not put the same people in your life or put you on the same path. And so it doesn't, so comparison has like no relevance because you're on a completely unique path. Every single person is. Right. And the more you can remember that, you know what, I have one God and I'm following what, you know, what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's all you have to worry about. Right. You know, I know it's hard, but just keep going back to, you know what, I am worthy and I am on my path doing my thing.
Right. And it's not like we can't have negative thoughts. We're always going to have them.
You're always going to have
them. You get better at dealing with them.
Right. That's exactly right. I feel like when you catch yourself going there, you've got to pretty much put your mind in reverse. You know, back up, get out of there, because you'll linger. It'll linger, and I've even seen it kind of happening to me. Your smile starts to dip, you know, and it's like some thought comes up, and by the time you look around again, you're crying.
Yeah.
And it's like, what is this about? What, you know, and you start to wonder, well, what is wrong with me? But it's because you sit there too long in that negative thought, and I'll use the term, all hell breaks loose. Yes. So definitely fine when you catch yourself. Like, I'm now more cognizant of the fact that when it starts to come up, because I guess I would say I'm opinionated. I'm not really argumentative, but I think I spent too long not really seeing how I felt. So it's all in my head. So if what you said offended me, instead of me trying to get clarification on what you said, because you may not have meant to offend me, or you may have meant something different, but how I perceived it because of my thought process, then now I'm not even speaking to you because I thought, or I was offended based on what was happening here, instead of clarifying and going at it from a more positive route. So it's a lot to learn.
And often, you know, a lot of people, they get tripped up in traffic. You know, that's where, like, and why do you get mad at somebody? Like, what's the belief there? If somebody, like, doesn't, like, blows through a traffic light, and someone gets mad, like, what's the belief? Well, I had to follow the rules, so you do too, or whatever it is. Usually there's a belief about everything. But, you know, I tell people, before you leave the house in the morning, take a few minutes to, like, just quiet your mind and breathe and put on some nice music, and don't turn the TV on, for God, and don't check social media. Just calm yourself and see if you have a better experience, because by the time you leave the door, if you're going through that same traffic route every day and you know it's going to be a lot of cars and a lot of congestion, you're already used to that pattern. You got to catch it before you even put yourself into that environment, you know?
Right.
Okay, any last thoughts? Because we're going to wrap it up here in a minute. Anyone have anything to go? Sheree, Liz? All right, well then we'll go ahead and close it up. So Lynn, thank you so much. It was very informative. I think it was great discussion. It gave us a lot to think about.
Yes.
kind of thing. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I am going to, once we finish the recording and then it processes, so, probably tomorrow morning sometime, I will post the replay. But under the replay, I'm going to post yes to wellness,
Yes to your health.
yes to your health.com.
In Lynn DelGaudio.
It's
No.
dot, yeah.
Yes to your health.fit
Okay.
in LynnDelGaudio.com.
Okay, I know I've got it somewhere, so I'll be posting it. So that'll be with the replay, so you can contact Lynn, and check out her services, kind of thing. That'd be great.
Okay.
And I just want to let you know, so mark your calendars now. If you, at least El Carice. Now Lynn and Sheree, you're going to have to participate long distance again, but our next training is going to be on March 4th. Monday evening, March 4th, and we are going to do like live speaker training. We're going to be at the Landmark office, Liz and Megan's office. But then we will also do it by Zoom, so you guys can see.
Awesome.
But we're actually going to work with whoever's there in the room on working on their speaker platform and giving them an opportunity to speak to the group and give them some critique and some pointers. So just do some live on the spot coaching.
Nice.
So that's what we're doing
What
March
time is
4th.
it?
It's going to be at 7, from like 7 to 8, 7 to 8:30. Are you going to be around, Miss El Carice?
I think so. That's why I wanted to confirm the time, because
I know. But it's going to
For
be
now.
off Ashley Phosphate. So
Okay.
that should be fairly convenient.